me do it here. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, what we're going to do just a little bit about Ramadan because we're starting, but of course, this is going to be something more of a simple thing for the younger generation. So why do we fast? The importance of Ramadan. It's just a number of different things to understand about Ramadan. So the first one is, well, what is fasting? And what is Ramadan? All right, so fasting in Islam, the word siyam actually means to stop doing something. So if I were to say I'm fasting from talking, that actually means I chose not to talk. I'm fasting from drinking, that means I chose not to drink. I'm fasting from bullying, that means I chose not to bully, right? So fasting just means you're not doing something. But when you look at the word fasting, it's too much of a general term. So that's why in Islam, the word fasting later was prescribed for the Muslims, of course, after the Prophet ﷺ, to actually fast actually means to stop eating and drinking during the day of Ramadan. During the day of Ramadan. All right. So why was that the case? Well, number one is that Muslims follow their month and they count the year based on the moon. So what does it mean based on the moon? Okay, I'm going to show you just a little bit. So just a little thing so you can see it. Can you actually see it right there? We're just going to see the different phases of the moon. And what I want you to see is that when we calculate the different times for the moon, is just to help you see what we mean by the lunar month. Okay, so phases of the moon. Okay, and why do we actually go into these things? Okay, I want you to look at that one, and I'm going to share it with the people that are here. Okay, so here we go. Every single month actually goes through different phases. So let's look at it right there. You guys see it right there? So I want you to understand the moon. Okay, this is our little moon right there. And then I'm just going to write some things on it. I hope, okay, the screen is loading for the people online. So here we go. This should be able to see it now. Okay, so what you're going to see, I'm just going to write some things on it. Okay, so Muslims would follow the calendar based on the moon. So the moon starts out really like right there. In the new moon, you can barely see it. In the new moon, that you could barely see it. And then it starts to grow, it starts to grow this way. Okay, so then the moon starts to, what does it mean to grow? It's not that the actual moon is getting bigger. All right, it's that the sun would actually right there put, it would reflect some light, and the moon surface is like a mirror. So the moon surface is like a mirror, and then when the earth is blocking the way, it basically would take some of that light, and then you could see either part of the moon, which is called the crescent, or you could see a full moon. Okay, so right there, you could see that the sun is blocked by the earth, and then only a little bit of this light that comes from the sun is reflected on the moon, and that's why it appears for us as a little crescent. It appears for us as what is called right there like a crescent. Okay, now it continues when the moon starts to go this way. Obviously, more of the sun radiates onto the moon. Now, the first quarter, this is usually the 7th day of that lunar month. Then the rays and the moon starts to get more and more of the sun rays until it becomes a full moon. Why? Because the earth is not blocking it. Okay, so the sun is right there. Here's the pretty sun that you guys can see. I'm the best artist. Okay, and now it's a full moon. When it's a full moon, those are called the white days. So it's usually the 14th or the 13th or the 14th or the 15th day of that lunar moon. So when it was half a moon, it was the 7th. When it's a full moon, it was the 13th, 14th, or 15th day of the month. Then it continues to start appearing differently. Here we go. It's starting to get some. This side, the moon is not getting anything on it. Well, that's because it's turning this way. It's turning away from the sun. So it's, think of it as, it's not getting the sun from this side. So that's why you would see it different than here. You see it? You could see it's the total opposite. It's basically the shining part is a total opposite than this part, right? Now, then it continues to start getting into that phase. And this is usually the 23rd of that month. Continues to get smaller and smaller until it basically starts to bringing in a new moon when it gets here. You guys see what I'm saying? You see this whole thing? So now that you see this cycle, all right, so Muslims would actually consider the real calculating for the month is actually based on the moon. So here we go, basically tells you sunlight, or I should have actually done this. I should have actually put, instead of putting the sun here, they're actually putting sun right here. So at the end of the day is that you understand that, when it comes to the sun and how we deal with it. Okay, now, so for the Muslims, you got 12 lunar months, okay? The 12 lunar months would actually add up to 56 days. So 354 days, okay? So one of those days, one of those months is basically the 9th month. It's called the month of Ramadan, okay? Ramadan is basically just one of those months, but during that month of Ramadan, that's when the Quran was revealed. Okay, so during the month of Ramadan, that's when the Quran was revealed, and that's why we would basically connect during that time with the Quran. So we connect with the Quran because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. So the month of Ramadan is basically the month that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed the Quran on that month. So what do? We connect to the Quran. We connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during that month in order to remind us of connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what are some of the things that we do during Ramadan? So I'm just going to share another slide, but obviously my laptop is not feeling the greatest here. So I can't even see what I'm doing. I definitely probably need to renew my laptop. Okay. All right. So some of the things, of course, number one is that the month of Ramadan, in where it's the month that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran in it. What else? Ramadan is basically a Ramadan that contains one very important day, which is, who knows? Laylat al-Qadr. Laylat al-Qadr. What about Laylat al-Qadr? Laylat al-Qadr is the only day that even Jibreel alayhi salam would come down. Laylat al-Qadr is the day where all the malaika would also be there. Laylat al-Qadr is basically better than worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in fact it's equivalent to worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 1,000 months. Laylat al-Qadr is a day where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also answer many du'as. Laylat al-Qadr is basically the night that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also sent the Quran on. So remember the story when the Prophet ﷺ was in Ghar Hira, all right? That story when the angel came to him and told him to read, and he said, I cannot read. You guys remember the story, right? Yeah. That actually happened on Laylat al-Qadr. That happened on Laylat al-Qadr. So when we speak of Ramadan, we're actually commemorating a very important thing, which is commemorating of how we connect and relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for Ramadan, it's a great time to recognize that's a month of opportunity to do what is good, an opportunity to also do an increase in more worship. It's an opportunity to get your deeds are actually multiplied. So if you were to get 5 deeds, for example, during the month of Ramadan, it'll be multiplied by even more than any other time. So if you're reading Quran, for example, any other day, you're getting an amount of hasanat. During Ramadan, it's actually multiplied. Now, the other thing during Ramadan that's important is that's when even the gates, of shayateen are also closed. So what does that mean? Is it that the gates of shayateen are closed, or is it that we just grow stronger? So this is a very important interpretation. The Prophet ﷺ said that during the month of Ramadan, the gates of shayateen are closed. So are they locked up in a place and then they all of a sudden get closed and they can't get out? No, it's not that they literally are locked up in a place. It's that when you grow stronger in your ability to face your own desires, that weakens the shayateen. So that's why to work on your iman, and the best time to work on your iman is actually during Ramadan. Because during Ramadan, with that fasting, with you not eating and not drinking and not doing a lot of things, that's when you will get stronger to be able and empowered, literally empowered to actually do a lot of good things. Empowered against your own self, because your own self, it actually has like a magnet. On the inside, there's a magnet. There's a relationship between how much you eat and how much you drink and what type of things your body, that energy on the inside actually builds another energy in where it wants to relate to more and more entertainment. And that's why even when people go and watch a movie, they bring with them popcorn. Why? Because when you're sitting in an entertainment, you want to feed more your body. Your body will take in and want to take in more and more and more food. That's why Islam was always telling you that there is a correlation between the amount of food intake and between sin, between the amount of how much you let your eye look around and between sin. In other words, there's a big correlation between entertainment and sin without you recognizing. The more entertainment, the more likely you are going to be getting weaker and weaker in facing the different challenges that surround you. Not only challenges. And that's why even for children that basically have entertainment gadgets and all of that, they'll actually more likely do, let's call it just, they'll do and have less scores even in school. They'll even work less at home. In other words, their investment to getting their life even better is going to be less and less. Why? Because entertainment and food and water and drinking, it basically just feeds our energy to wanting more and more and more. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, no, I want you to reduce from that entertainment, because the second you reduce from it, the stronger you go. You see now it's connected. The stronger you'll grow in your spirituality. You, in your body, you have three major things. Got it? Let's look at it. You've got three major things in your body. You've got the mind, you've got the body, and deep on the inside, you may not notice, but you also have a soul. You may not notice it. When a person dies, do they have the body? They do. Do they have the brain? Well, it certainly is in there. Is it functioning? No. But guess what? When a person dies, listen to this. When a person dies, something very interesting that they actually discovered is that even when the person dies, for quite some time, the brain still, at least in the thalamus, in certain parts in the brain, it still is working, especially the areas that relate to memory, that relate to remembering and memory. In other words, you might actually think that the person just died, but they are recognizing a lot of things that you don't recognize. To you, this person is dead, but to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that, well, as a matter of fact, the person is not entirely dead. Because death, if to you is just the body not having the ability to move, there's actually more about you than just body. You see that? You guys pay attention to this one. There's more about you than body. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that if you are to look at your body and just understand that it is your main place of focus, you've got your vision and your data entirely missing a lot of information. Your body can manipulate you to thinking that that's what you are. Your body, the more you feed your body, the stronger it goes. But then if you are thinking that your body is your most important place of focus, you're missing a whole big picture. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, listen, your body is not the most important thing. And because you may not understand why your body is not the most important thing, so what is the most important thing? It's actually your spirit. It's actually your ruh. Why is it the most important thing? Well, picture this. What brings this dead person back to life is actually the same thing that took them out of life. What brings them back to life is the same thing that took them out of life. That's the ruh. That's the soul. In other words, what actually is your real life is your ruh. Your real life is your ruh. It's not your body. Your body is just this little room that your ruh is living in. So to think of your focus being on your body, Islam tells you, well, you know what? I want you to recognize your ruh by taking away a lot of what makes your body, making your brain think of it as the major focus. So what does fasting do? It basically tells you, I want you to disregard your body for a minute. I want you to create and recognize a new vision. Look at me right here. You're seeing a big image of me. But what if I tell you to look at my nose? You all of a sudden see my nose as really big, right? You all of a sudden see my nose as really big. What happened? My nose isn't big before you didn't recognize that my nose was big. But now that you centered and zoomed in on my nose, now Khadija's laughing. She all of a sudden realized that my nose was big. What happened is that your vision, what you focus on, it actually grows in your mind. It grows in your observation. You're able to see it better. And that's the same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, I want you to give this time during Ramadan to disregard your body for a little bit. I'm not going to tell you to die. So I'll let you eat and drink during the night, but I want you to disregard your body for a little bit in order for you to let your focus be on your ruh. What is a ruh? A ruh actually has a number of different elements. Well, I'm going to put up, I want you right there. Look at this one. I'm just going to give you just a little close up of understanding something. I want you guys to look at this. You got animals, you got humans, and you got angels. Okay? Well, animals live to eat and reproduce, to get babies. But what do they live for? Do they have a purpose? They don't have a purpose. So what do? Well, they just live to eat. That's all. They don't have a purpose in life. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted that we would slaughter cows and eat cows, or slaughter sheep and eat sheep. But he forbid that we would just do it just for the sake of, hunting and throwing. He said, if you're going to use it for a purpose to eat, I'll allow you to do that, because anyways, these animals don't have a purpose but one purpose, which is really for your survival. Humans, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, well, you eat and you reproduce to live. In other words, the main purpose is really, with food and water, is really for survival. But your survival and your purpose of life are right there correlated, because your survival is not in itself the main purpose. The purpose of your life, the purpose for your life, actually preceded your existence. It came before you even existed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, okay, eating and reproduction is not your purpose. Your real purpose was determined before you were even created. All right? Before you were even created. But eating and drinking and reproduction is just a tool to get you to the purpose that you were created for. Let's continue the other one. Angels, on the other hand, they don't eat, they don't drink, and they certainly don't reproduce. They don't get babies. So who do we have more in common with? Humans, do they have more in common with animals or angels? Animals. We have more in common with animals. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let's just see right there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that angels, they actually don't eat and don't drink and don't reproduce, but they have one very important mission to live to. Their purpose is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Animals, they don't have a purpose. There's no purpose. Humans. Well, if humans were to eat and reproduce and live just to eat and reproduce and drink, that would actually mean they're living like animals. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, no. Humans, if you live to eat and reproduce, you would really be on the same level of animals. So what should you do? I want you to elevate yourself, give your eating, drinking, and reproduction a chance. I want you to lessen from that in order to grow from focusing on your body to focusing on your ruh, in order to imitate the malaika, in order to imitate the angels. Why? Because they don't eat and they don't drink and they don't reproduce. I want you to be what is called Rabbani. What is Rabbani? Rabbani means that you're taking Allah Almighty as the one that you want to go to, so you live his principle. Your destination is Allah Almighty. So you're like, I'll use that as a tool, but I really want to get to the main purpose, what I was created for, which is my soul wanting to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what do we do? We've got the mind. Where's the mind in the whole story? The mind is not the main place. that stores all your information. According to Islam, the mind processes one piece of the information, not the entire piece. The rest of the piece is actually stored in your heart. But I thought heart only pumps blood and all of that. Actually, your heart also has different neurons that are very similar to your brain. So Islam tells you, you know what? That's why what you don't recognize is that your brain is just one piece of the matter for thinking. Your thinking is not is not exclusive, and it's not just within thinking of the consequences, the cognitive skills and so forth. No, your thinking involves more than that, because the way you relate with the world around you actually involves what you see, what you hear, what you behave in. All of these different things, they become a very important factor in how you process your understanding about the world around you. So what does that mean? How is that related to anything? Well, that actually means when you are sad, your heart can actually go into different situation where it can give you a heart attack. But sadness is just one side that we know. Sadness, a shocking news, or anything that relates to, that's one side. In other words, sadness and feelings and all of that, they're not just feelings. In other words, the way you relate with the world around you actually goes farther than just certain actions of matter in your body. What you see, what you hear, how you relate with the people around you, sadaqah, dhikr, all of that is actually part of what affects your heart, what affects your mind, and certainly what affects your even deeper core, your ruh, without you recognizing. So Islam tells you what you need to recognize is that with fasting, with Ramadan, it's basically an iman enhancer. It's an iman therapy. It's to get you into recognizing your ruh by eliminating your focus on your body. It's also right there in where gonna get you stronger into getting your ruh connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And where in that situation, it's basically going to tell you, I want you to recognize that your real love is not the food and water and entertainment. I want you to recognize that your real love and your true enthusiasm, your true joy is with La ilaha illallah. Your true joy, it's basically by getting into your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you basically train yourself how to become just like the malaika, to be a servant for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by actually focusing on the akhirah, not the dunya. So siyam is basically a practical embodiment. You're making yourself submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, submit to what you were created for, which is the purpose that you were created for, which is to get to your akhirah and not to get to your own body and living like animals. So Islam tells you, I want you to get training. So when should we fast? Once the girl reaches and the boy reach for the age of what is called puberty, that's when you're mandated to fast. So what if I was younger than puberty? I still didn't get a mustache, and the girl still didn't become like a woman, looking like a woman. So even if you are young, you will still be rewarded for fasting. So do I have to fast? Well, if you are very young, you'll go some training. You can get to some training if you're very young, but once you're a little bit older, we can see your mustache through some kind of a microscope, then you're definitely getting older, right? Can you see your mustache through a microscope? Yep. Hamza was telling them that he's starting to see the signs of a beard. Are you, Hamza?
No, it's my grandpa. He always comes and says, "Oh, Hamza, look, you have your nose, your eyes, your ears.
Okay.
Mashallah, and I can see some mustache.
Some mustache, there you go. If your grandpa can see it, that's it. That's all it needs. I mean, if your grandpa, of course, he doesn't have the best sight, but if he can see it, we're definitely blinded.
Can you see it from there?
It's the ruh. The beard is the beard in the ruh, not the appearance. It's different. All right. So at the end of the day is that once you will start getting older, that's when you're held accountable. Why? When we get older. When we get older, because in Islam, there is no such thing as teenage. What? In Islam, once you're a teenager, once you hit puberty, in Islam, you're an adult.
That's the biggest group of
This is, you know what? It's extremely sad to say that this is the most dangerous sale, the most dangerous propaganda that is actually sold to teenagers, that you're a teenager and that you get to act yourself, etc. But in Islam, it tells you, no, you're an adult, you're held accountable, so act like one. So act like one, you're responsible. So does that mean I can tell my mom that I'm an adult? She doesn't have to tell me what to do? No, that's not what it means. It actually means to act responsibly, even if you are 40 and 50, if your parents give you an instruction, that actually means your parents are to be held as وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Your parents will always be at a place of respect, at a place where you would respect and appreciate even their experience. You may think that, oh, well, you know, I don't have to, I've got a new way of viewing the world. Experience. And if it wasn't for experience, we would not have been able to get to where we're at today. Experience is one major thing that we should always respect, because that's to help you appreciate and not make those mistakes that other people have done. So culture is not necessarily to be something bad. Culture contains information. Culture contains information that are key information to help you survive. Your parents' information are key information to help you move on. So to see that my father and mother, etc., without this piece of culture, even animals would have died. Culture is actually to be something cherished, because without it, you would not be capable of starting where they had left off from. You'll be doomed to making more and more mistakes. People that don't learn history are deemed and are going to be committing the same mistake again and again. So when we look at our parents, we cherish the amount of investment, the amount of energy, the love that they had given us, even if we're teenagers, even if we're adults. And by the way, knowledge is not about a degree. So even if you have a PhD and your father only studied until 5th grade, don't look down at them and think that, oh, they don't have a college degree. This is the modern, I would say, second manipulation that we're living in, that college degrees and all of that is what makes you somehow worthy or that that's a reflection of how much you know. Knowledge is not only knowledge in one particular area. It's not only knowledge in one particular area, but knowledge also in understanding experience in life is even more worth than a college degree. And remember, there are things that money cannot buy. You know what that is? You can put, if we had, let's just say this was gold, you'll put a price for it, right? There'll still be a price. You'll limit it into a certain price. But if a person that was rich, they just needed to use the bathroom, and they go to the bathroom and they discover that they cannot use the bathroom, or they were so thirsty, they're willing to pay all their money for 1 cup of water. They're willing to put in all their money for just 1 cup of water. If 1 cup of water is worth all their money, that tells you this money that people are fighting over is really not the real value. Same thing when we're talking about family. Same thing when we're talking about mother and father. They're worth more than all the money that is out there. Your mother and your father are worth more than all the money. Your health, listen to this. The Prophet ﷺ said, Man kana aminan fi sirbihi. If you're living secure in your home, mu'afan fi badanihi, and you've got good health, and you've got the food for your day, then hizat lahu dunya. That's everything you got in dunya. There's no more. There's absolutely no more. Whether you ate caviar or whether you ate zayt and za'atar, the end of the day, it was the nutrient that made you survive. And whether you lived in a mansion or whether you lived in a small hut, at the end of the day, what really matters is how secure and how stable and how safety and how happy this home is. And whether you married the most handsome guy or whether you married somebody that probably has good deen, etc. All right, doesn't mean if somebody has good deen, doesn't mean that they're ugly, but all right, the end of the day is that what really matters are the meanings, the principles, the values that are within. You can buy a bed, but you can't buy sleep. You can buy a house, but you can't buy a home. You can probably bring in people around you, but that doesn't make them friends. It doesn't make them friends, right? You can buy health insurance, but you can't guarantee health, right? You can't guarantee health. And that's the same thing. And you can also afford the food, but if you couldn't, if your body couldn't digest it because you were ill, sorry, it's really worthless. It's worth nothing. Therefore, the true value is not at all in the money. There's so many different things that are worth more than the money. So right there, fasting is about helping you focus not on material, but on the meanings within those values, the meanings of how to have sabr, how to have patience, because it's worth more than what you have. So what do we learn from fasting? Sabr, which is even more worth than anything else. More worth than the food? Yes, it's more worth than the food. How to focus on the meanings of the different values, dhikr, the worship, etc. Why? Because that's what brings in that relationship between you and yourself even. Because it tells you, listen, there's something that's more important about you than what you stand up in front of the mirror and see. And that is your ruh. Could be beautiful on the outside, but that's not what matters. Just when you die, boom, everything. One car accident and all of your appearance is gone. What happened? What's more valuable about you is not the outer appearance, it's the inside, it's the ruh. Cherish those moments. Bring in family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring in the family. Allahumma ameen. Bring in our iman. Bring in our recognition for our ruh. Bring in our recognition for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make us amongst those people that live to recognize akhlaq, that live to recognize Allah, that live to cherish our family. Allahumma ameen. So I know we took a long time and I know you guys have to go home. I didn't even recognize the time, but thanks for listening. Allah yabarak fiku. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. In fact, even the Zoom decided that it wants to hang up. Yep.
I have a question about Laylatul Qadr.
You have a question? We'll be talking more in detail about that. So save your question. You want to answer? Go ahead, ask it.
So last year, my dad woke me up for Laylatul Qadr,
Okay.
and then he said if you make a dua and ask Allah for what you want, inshallah, Allah will give it. So we did our suhoor. So we did our Laylatul Qadr, and then we did suhoor, and then we went to bed. And before I went to bed, I said, "Ya Allah, please give me $1 million on my desk when I wake up." And I wake up.
You didn't see the $1 million? You take them, Rania. Rania, did you take the? He made the dua on Laylatul Qadr to get $1 million on the desk when he wakes up. And they weren't there. Rania, you didn't take those, did you? You took the falafel? I knew it. She took the falafel. So what happened? Here are number three. Here are three things. Why? Yusuf Susi didn't tell us, did he?
I have no idea what he's asking
What-
about.
okay.
No clue
Okay.
at all.
So he said he made the dua on Laylatul Qadr to get $1 million, that he would wake up and $1 million on the table. And it was in Laylatul Qadr. It wasn't there. So he was wondering what happened to the $1 million. So
They're still looking for their way
they're
to
still
you.
looking for their, it could be true. It could be true. It could be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you inshallah $1 million one day.
Or he knows that
All
there's
right.
something better for
And
you.
inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might not have answered the dua in the way that you wanted. So he gave you something even
Else.
more worth, because if, for example, you would know that if you were to get $1 million right now, that probably it means that you're going to go astray, or that you're not going to focus on something even more valuable. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did answer the dua for you, but didn't answer it the way that your narrow vision would think is best for you. So he'd answer it for you differently. Or he answered your dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, will give you something better in Jannah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Allahumma ameen.
I mean,
He seems really disappointed for not getting the $1 million. Haram alaykum. I'm starting to doubt. Fadwa, you didn't keep them somewhere.
I'm looking for them myself.
Maybe they're under the bed
somewhere.
somewhere. All right. How can we be sincere in our intention? So to be sincere, I do actually have a whole lecture on that. I will, inshallah, send it over. So if you are part of my WhatsApp group, I will be sending it on there, inshallah. What was that?
Can I be in your WhatsApp group?
Yes, you can. I will add you to my WhatsApp group, inshallah. Inshallah. All right. Well, assalamu alaikum, everyone, and barakallahu fikum. Sorry for that.